Llangollen is a small town situated on the River Dee in North Wales. It is known for its natural beauty and its Welsh culture. It's home to many incredible sights, including the Llangollen Railway.
I've been involved in Llangollen Railway since about 1982. I'm involved with both heritage steam and diesel. I'm a driver on the diesel locomotives and steam. I'm also involved on the permanent way and with the signal and telegraph department.
I'm retired, so I am at the railway quite a lot. I'm duty station master here. My husband is the station master.
I remember coming here when I was really young, probably 8, something like that, and I think I remember coming with my 9 and we went on I think it was the Thomas train. That was the big event that everyone, all the little kids like doing. That was my earliest memory coming here. Came back for a few years after that because I live locally anyway, so it was a convenient day out.
I joined the railway back in 1975. Became the first guard on the railway as well, with our first public service in July 1981, and I progressed to footplate and ultimately driver.
I wasn't born and brought up in the area, but I did visit the area when pre-beaching, so that would be in the early 60s. But apart from that, I have no other experience of it until I came to live locally. And then, being a lifelong railway enthusiast, I thought I ought to come and have a look. And then when I retired, I needed something to do, so I volunteered.
I am dreaming of the mountains of my home.
The scenery here is just stunning, and it's different along each section of the line. The weather can be different on each section of the line too. You can drive into the tunnel, into Berwyn Tunnel at this end in sunshine and almost come out of the other end in driving hail. So the weather is different, but the scenery is really what makes Llangollen Railway.
The sort of historic nature of the railway, the restoration that's going on is quite fascinating, especially if you're a train enthusiast. Sort of seeing the work that's going on and the passion, I think, is quite another big part of it as well. The volunteers here love what they do. They love the railway basically, and I think that's a big part of the Llangollen Railway is everyone likes Llangollen and likes the railway and the history behind it.
The fact there are multiple railways is very good if you're an enthusiast, because they're in just about every part of the country. But what makes ours special, I think, is the scenery. It follows the River Dee. There's views of 2 mountain ranges, and I think that's unequalled by any other heritage railway.
The river, whilst it is a challenge, is a huge asset because there's a lot of wildlife on it. We're very fortunate to run through an area of outstanding natural beauty. We run through a site of special scientific interest for most of the line, and there's a lot of wildlife. You get a grandstand view of all this. And a lot of the wildlife is so used to having a train go past now, they don't even move out of the way. The sheep stay on the side of the line and just stare at you as the train comes past.
The railway has had a rather turbulent history.
So the railway here, here in Llangollen, the township of Llangollen, in the late 1850s, really wanted to be part of the national network that was forming. There was a line from Chester to Shrewsbury, as it still is today, and that cut across the end of the valley, so 5 miles away from the town. But in order for people in the town to get onto a train, they had to go either by a canal boat, walk the 5 miles, or go by stagecoach along the A5 from the Holyhead Road. By 1859, there was a big meeting, and it sort of decided that they wanted to build the railway to here. By 1862, the first 5.5 miles, so from Rwabon on the Chester to Shrewsbury line to here, open to passengers. On the back of that, there was plans by the Great Western Railway, which is the big Brunel's railway in effect, to have a route to the North Wales, to the Cambrian coast. So tapping into the growing tourist resorts of, say, Barmouth, say, Bethelly, and likewise tap into the slate trade that was down Snowdonia. So the Great Western Railway sort of bankrolled a series of railway companies to extend the railway from here to get to Barmouth. So the first part was from Llangollen to Corwin, which was 1865, and then from Corwin on to Bala, which was very handily called Corwin and Bala Railway, and then onwards to Dolgellau. The plan then was to extend from Dolgellau on to Barmouth, so about another 10 miles along the estuary to the coast. The railway company at Barmouth that had a line running right along the coast wanted to stop this new line going through. So they actually built the railway from Barmouth back to Dolgellau to block them in. So you ended up 10 miles away from the coast with two stations and two lines meeting head on. So up until the 1920s, the station at Dol had two station masters, two station buildings, two sets of station staff looking at one another opposite the platforms, and the Great Western Railway had running rights. They had to pay the Cambrian Railway to run trains over the last 10 miles to get to the coast, which has always been their aim. By 1963, the infamous Dr. Beeching comes onto the scene. The railway had been nationalised as part of the government-run railway, and this railway, over the summer months, was making a profit. It was, there was a lot of people using it, and it was paid its way. Come the winter months, it wasn't, and so a survey was done to sort of look at the traffic numbers. And they came in during the week in April, recorded the numbers and found surprisingly they're rather low, and sort of on the basis that this duplicated another line to the Cambrian coach, which was the Cambrian Railways one. The line was to close in January 1965. In the month previous, in December 1964, the River Dee is the main river that runs right alongside the line through Llangollen and through Corwin, for example, and burst its banks. The water level in that was so high, it actually flooded the track very places and washed it out. With 3 weeks or 4 weeks to go, British Railways didn't want to spend a lot of money to repair the track. There's a railway replacement bus for about 3 weeks. All the stations were still manned. The bus called at every station. You bought your ticket on the station, they go on the bus. 16th of January 1965, the line closed to passengers. There were still goods trains running once or twice a week along this stretch, still earning money, so the railway officially closed in 1968, completely. And at that point, about a year later, the track was lifted, and the council bought this part of the line, and then a bunch of nutters, enthusiasts, and set to in the early 1970s with a view of linking Llangollen with Corwin again. Wanted to put the railway back between the two towns, the 10-mile line.
September 1975, there was an open day. The railway received the keys for Llangollen station, so I came down and had a look, and in some ways I was rather disappointed because I was expecting to see fully fledged railway, track, carriages, engines, and all that was there was a derelict site. It was horrendous.
Over the opening weekend, there was 1,500 visitors to come and see the new railway being put back. And through newspaper recycling, through charity collections, through tin can recycling, for example, and volunteers and members putting their hands in their pockets and donating money, we've been able to rebuild.
To some extent, we've got Dr. Beeching to thank in a perverse sort of way. Although he was the architect of closing many of the branch lines around the UK, if those branch lines had not been closed, then many of these fledgling steam railways that have grown up around the country would not have had the opportunity. This line closed, the whole line was removed, the scrap trains came through and took everything. So everything here at Llangollen we've put back and relayed in many cases from the ground up.
Eventually people started turning up in the station at Llangollen, and I joined the gang constructing the what we call the permanent way, the track work. One of the big challenges was there was no money, so there was no equipment as such, no mechanisation. And there's a classic photograph of one of the team cutting a rail with a hacksaw. Now that takes some doing because the rail is manganese steel, so it was very, very labour intensive and hard work, but fun. Eventually we got some mechanisation. By about 1981 we had a locomotive, brake van and a tool van which enabled us to work further away from Llangollen station where we stored most of our stuff.
In 1986, we opened the railway as far as Berwyn station, and I think of all of the extensions I've been involved in, that was perhaps the most interesting and the most exciting. It was the first major extension. We'd crossed the barrier of the River Dee, got over the bridge, and we were on our way to Corwin.
Because of the family nature, we were working in quite a confined area of the railway, and we all knew one another. And we got on really well.
In the present time, it's all too easy to get rid of something that is old and not used anymore. Whereas with the railways, we can sort of show the children and instruct them how the trains arrived, what they did.
A lot of work goes into the minor details, making it an authentic experience for everyone.
Rather than just sort of throw a sign here, it looks nice, and throw something there because that's what we've got available. It's more been a case of trying to put the detail back in. There was a sign there, so let's recreate that bit. You know, let's get it right. If we're going to spend all this time to do it, let's do it right. The beauty of it is when you do something right and you put something back that was always there, and so was taken away in the 1960s and scrapped or sold off or whatever, you recreate it and you step away and you go, that looks like it's always been there.
One of the benefits that the railway has to offer is it's able to resurrect some of the old skills. So in terms of maintaining these steam engines, there's a lot of copper pipe work and boiler work that needs to be done, which is an old skill which has almost died out. In some cases, we're having to relearn skills to restore some of these locomotives. We are getting adept at manufacturing our own new parts because you can't go to the shelf and pick up a new component or a new valve. So in addition to machining and repairing the old valves and equipments and items on the locomotives, we're also able to manufacture our own. We have a machine shop with some pretty skilled individuals who can turn their hand to most things.
Our oldest one here dates back to the late 1920s on the railway here in Llangollen. Our youngest one dates to the mid-1950s. They're all basically at the point they would have been scrapped. By restoring them and sort of putting new frames in, new boilers, new components into it, we've managed to keep them going in traffic. But the further we go on, the older that machine gets, the harder it becomes and the more costly it becomes to keep it going. Things get older, the more like to break down. With a steam engine, it's a large bomb potentially. You're boiling water to create steam to move the motion. If that goes wrong, it's a crater in the ground. Or potentially, no, you'll never get to that point. But we have to be completely safety critical.
They would have gone to complete ruin if there weren't the heritage railways to rescue them. There are certain locos in museums, but nowhere near as many as there are preserved.
If you scrap a lot of these things, you lose the heritage that goes with them. So I think it is important that we still provide the steam engines, although you do need deep pockets.
We were very fortunate in preservation for one gentleman down in South Wales, and that's a gentleman called Llangollen. Now, when steam in Britain was being scrapped in the 1960s, he got on the bandwagon and he owned a scrapyard in South Wales and bought a load of steam engines with a view to sort of, to cut them up and make a profit from selling off the scrap. At the same time though, where he was in Barry in South Wales is right at the bottom of all these valleys that these little four-wheeled coal trucks were being scrapped as well. A little coal truck is so much easier to scrap than a big steam locomotive because they're all standard. So by the early 1970s, Barry Scrapyard was one of the last places where you could find and buy a steam engine, because everything else had been cut up. They'd been so efficient everywhere else, they'd all been cut. So they started to get approached by people in preservation who were setting up their own railway and asking, can we buy a locomotive? And sort of about 220, 230 locomotives from Barry Scrapyard have survived. And so most of preservation owes its great gratitude and debt to one scrap mine in South Wales. And I don't think you can go to many steam railways where there isn't a tie-wooden connection.
We're very good at preserving things in this country, something we've always done, and I think we have a regard for the past, and I think a lot of people just want to cling on to the simple time in life. This day and age, everything's 100 mile an hour and a touch of a button. In those days, it was so much simpler, and I think quite a few people have a longing for those days. And Heritage Railway, you can dip in and then go back out again to your fast and furious normal life.
I think for most of our visitors coming down onto the railway to see a steam engine, it's something so alien, but so approachable. It's either, it's either Thomas, for example, is a Thomas the Tank Engine character for our little visitors, or for our elderly visitors, our more experienced in life visitors, for say. Those bits are really to what they remember as a child. So, what they remember growing up.
It represents a time gone by. It's nostalgia. I think it's something that everyone can relate to, even the youngsters. They're fascinated by these big monsters, which they won't have seen before. As time goes by, there are fewer and fewer of us left who can remember steam in the days of British Rail and so on. It's only the Heritage Railways now that provide that insight into a bygone era.
I think it goes back to the schoolboy thing of train spotting. In my day, steam was king, and there were literally hundreds of people on every station spotting trains. There are various other countries with preserved steam, but not to the extent of the UK, I don't think.
A lot of the younger children today haven't seen steam engines. They don't know anything about them. When you get them on the footplate to have a look, and they open the firebox and there is a living fire inside, it's amazement.
In June 2023, the railway finally reached its target of extending to Corwin.
Bear in mind we started in 1975, and the new permanent station in Corwin opened in June last year, so June 2023. So it's taken nearly 50 years to link both the towns together.
It was really very good. We didn't think we were going to get here because obviously the obstacles that we've had in the past. It was really good to find that we were here, and the town were good as well. They were always asking, when is it coming? And it's brilliant. It really is.
Back in '75, the ambition was to get to Corwin, and the then chairman, Bill Shakespeare, said it should take us about 10 years. Well, it's taken us over 40.
Corwin was a really special day. I was fortunate enough to be involved in operating trains that first weekend. Huge credit to all the volunteers that have been involved in the construction of Corwin Station.
To be there on the day, I genuinely had a tear in my eye, because thinking we've done it, we've achieved it as an organisation. And the hard bit was sort of remembering the members who weren't there on the day, the ones who, passed away, no longer with us, or have gone off and taken a different route in life. If you come here and spend a day on the railway, if you come here, we spend every working day that you could possibly give on the railway. Both of those are in equal measure, as far as I can say, because you've come along, you've helped out, you've tried to help us achieve the goal of keeping this railway here. So to be there at Corwin on the opening day, sort of to achieved the 50-year ambition to put it back, was phenomenal.
Well, it's a long time coming, and it's a long time overdue, with lots of obstacles to overcome. So when it finally made it and the first train ran in June last year, it was absolutely superb feeling.
With all the troubles that the railway has sort of faced in recent years, and then, you know, to finally cross the finishing line, if you will, massive project that had been started years ago. I can only imagine the relief that the people must have felt when they finally finished it.
The last mile of track from Bonham and into Cornwall, on one particular day, the youngest person laying the track there was 60, or 60. The oldest was about 84. And a lot of those who have been involved with the physical track laying were involved 30, 40 years ago when we're extending from here to Berwyn or on to Deeside and things like that. As the line was extended, they've been here helping point the clips out, laying the sleepers, because a lot of this line was laid by hand.
Get a lot of questions, when are we going to get to Bala? Well, that's for another generation, if it ever happens. There are lots of obstacles in the way, not least a bridge that will have to be put back and land ownership and so on. So I think we've done pretty well to get to where we are.
When you work in the cafe, you see, you know, people of all ages and genders come in, and it's amazing the passion of these people. They absolutely love the railway. They live and breathe it. For it to be, a lot of them to be volunteers as well, you know, to come here on their days off to help out and, you know, do something that they're passionate in. They all come from different, they all do different bits in the railway, so you never hear the same story twice usually. It's like a little culture hub, I guess, of train enthusiasts of different expertise.
We have a wide range of capabilities, shall we say, which we use to good effect. You know, whenever we need some electrical work doing, our chairman was a former electrical contractor, so he will come in and do electrical work. My background is water industry, so when we needed water supply, I was instrumental in getting an abstraction licence to take water out of the River Dee. At Corwin here we have a borehole which we abstract from to fill the water tank that supplies water to the engines. There's a myriad of careers that have helped build this railway to what it is now.
The railway here is a 21st century tourist attraction. We're operating 20th century rolling stock on a 19th century railway system. All the bridges in that date back to the 1860s, 1890s. So if we were to do a hard line sort of, we put it back as it was in 1955, say, something like that. We may as well close down because, in all honesty, we need to be able to have clean toilets, a nice cafe, sort of a shop that sells merchandise for commercial purpose to keep the railway going. So there is a compromise to be done. The entranceway into the station today, our booking hall, is the old parcels office. Likewise, the cafe is the old booking hall, because that's where the most space is.
I think we've got it just about right. We're trying to produce authenticity, but at the same time look at the latest rules on safety and communications and things. So the decorations at the stations, for example, try to be in keeping with the era that we're representing, which is 50s and early 60s. As an
organisation, we've put the track back in and we've put the trains on it, but this is sort of the detail of the model railway, but at 12 inch the foot scale effect. So we're trying to put it, so it looks like a 1950s timepiece in effect. You walk onto any of these stations and you immediately step back in time because the signs are right and the sort of the barrows are there, there's the parcels waiting to go onto the train, there's the milk churns, the lighting is the old-fashioned lighting, and then as you go down the valley on the journey, all of the infrastructure's there, so that the cast signs on the side of the line side, the mile posts that record how far you want down the journey, all the little things that in their own right, you're not going to sell another ticket. You're not going to come to the Llangollen Railway just to go see a sign or a milepost or something like that. But collectively, they add to the ambience of the railway.
Having been around over 150 years, the valley just wouldn't be the same without the railway.
Llangollen is the hub, and if there was no railway here, it just wouldn't be the same. Many people come purely for the railway, but others come not even knowing there's a railway here, but they find their way to it and are impressed with what they see, usually. The other towns, Berwyn is a useful place to get off and go for a wander round. And Glingduffton similarly, there's not much there, but if you're a keen walker, there's superb countryside to walk through, and you can actually walk through to the next station and get another train back. That's Carrog, the next station. Again, a very small village, but it does have a really good pub. And then Corwan itself, which we're hoping will recognise the fact that the railway's got there and there's far more footfall in the town, which will encourage more businesses to open up.
A lot of people have obviously heard of Llan, but people won't have heard of Corwen perchance, or any of the other places along the line. It's kind of, expose people to sort of different parts of the country that they might not have seen before, a bit more countryside, and to show them sort of the beautiful Welsh landscape. People will remember the views that they've seen and the experience of it all. And I think they'll come back again without impress. Hopefully, they'll be with it all. So Llangollen Railway is important for highlighting the sort of the more rural aspects of the area and just sort of Wales in general.
Steam. The drawer of steam still does it. But we can't run steam trains every day. If physically we would lose money hand over fist if we did. So we have to balance out the diesels, the heritage rail cars and the steam traction together to try and work out, if you only have 20 people turn up on a Wednesday, for example, you don't want to be having the really expensive steam hauled service out because you won't make that money back.
Utilities are going up exponentially. At one time our utilities bill was 30,000 a year, now it's near 100,000 a year.
There's a lot of cost involved, and one of our steam locos here, for example, when it's going up the line, burns coal. The coal, sort of about 5 or 6 years ago, was 150, 200 pounds a tonne. We're now at the point where it's about 500 quid a tonne. So it's gone up a lot, but our ticket prices haven't tripled. To keep up with that, we can't. So we have to we need to have a commercial side of things to keep it going, really. The joke in preservation is how do you become a millionaire? You start off with 10 million and buy a steam engine.
So what's next in the story of Llangollen Railway?
I hope that the railway will continue and that more younger people will come into the railway to keep it going.
I think as a heritage steam railway, our main focus is on sort of the tourist trade and enabling families to recreate what travel by train would have been like in the 1960s, just before steam finished. And I think lots of people now don't remember steam running on the main lines of this country. The youngsters particularly, they don't have those memories. And so their first sight often of a real steam train is this smoking, steaming, clanking beast. And I think perhaps that's the legacy, is allowing people to experience something that has been lost and is gone.
The legacy today is the fact that we are here. That's the nuts and bolts of it. It's sort of the fact that we have stations we can open, we have a platform with a train that people can operate on. There's a legacy today that is absolutely, a product of 50 years work to get to that point.
Preserving sort of the local heritage going forward, other stations around the country can look towards the story of the Llangollen Railway, see how things were done here, take inspiration from it, do things differently. The heritage of it, of the station, is something that they'll hopefully build upon going forward. Said, with the Corwen project, keep a piece of history alive.
If any other railways as well, all the heritage ones, if you don't get younger volunteers that will show enthusiasm to carry on the legacy, it will just disappear, which is really it's terrible. It's a shame.
A lot of our friends and colleagues in the heritage sector who are having to think very carefully how they run their railways, and I think it's fair to say all heritage railways will be modifying the way they operate. If they don't, it's questionable whether they will survive. But we're in quite a good place at the moment.
It's not likely that the railway will extend any further. We've got 10 miles, and that is more than enough for a heritage steam railway. If we went any further, we'd have to charge more than what people may be willing to pay. So as long as we keep our volunteer system going and recruit people from an early age, get them trained up, I think things could continue for a long time in the same way.
We've also done something right. If we wanted to be here for 50 years, so here's the next 50 years, here's the next 150 years.